tech for sure makes the game easier, but it's also making you mentally soft. You do not need another gadget. What you need to do is count your dang steps. Hello, my golf friend. Welcome back to Think Above Par. I hope you're having a beautiful August, playing lots of great golf, and using your brain. Using your brain to manage your mind, monitor your mind and your thoughts and your emotions, challenging yourself to stretch into uncomfortable situations. And I wanted to talk about challenging yourself on this podcast today mentally, mathematically, I should say. And it was a conversation I had with a client that I'd never thought about before. And I wanted to share it with you because it was really an epiphany for me. So I'm a little old school. I was playing the game of golf before there were gadgets. There were toys. There's GPS. There were watches that you could wear. There's things in the carts telling you how far away you were and how far it was to the water. There's even an app that helps you read whatever on the green. So you don't even have to look at the green anymore. You can just look at arrows on a map to tell you which way the green is breaking. And I think these gadgets are fantastic and they're helpful and they for sure make the game easier. But one of the things they do is they make you lazy. You know, when I grew up, I had to really use my eyes to judge distance. I was really good at judging distance because we had sometimes little bushes that were in the rough, and that was the 150-yard bush. Or you had a random sprinkler head that sometimes had a yardage on it and sometimes didn't have a yardage on it. Or there were discs. Did anybody play with those discs that you drive over and they compress and you have red and white and blue? Red was 100 yards, white was 150, blue was 200. Or there was a plaque in the middle of the fairway that was the 150 yardage marker. That was all we had. And we had to trust that they were right. And we had to find out what they were too. The middle of the green, the front of the green. Right? And then we had to figure out and guess how many feet back or steps back the pin was if we didn't have a pin sheet. So then you'd stand on that 150-yard marker, depending on where your ball was, and you either walked back to your ball or you walked forward to your ball and you counted your steps. Now you had to take big steps because one big step would equal a yard, 3 little steps in between. Now, if you have short, squatty legs like me, I'd have to take really big steps. I'd have to stretch really far. I remember walking one time with my friend Kelly, and she has longer legs than I do. And we'd pace it off and then we'd say what we got. And she's like 10. I'm like, I got 30 because I was taking these little itty bitty baby steps. And I realized, wow, this has been really affecting my yardage all these years. I'm exaggerating, but being off by 2 can make a big difference over time, right? I guess, depending on what your club is. So anyway, you would either have to walk, if your ball was in front of the 150-yard marker, closer to the green, you'd step in, how many paces? 8 paces. You'd subtract that from 150, you're 142 yards from the middle. And then you had to do more math if the pin was in the back or if the pin was in the front. Things weren't very precise because you didn't even know if the yardage marker that you were going off of was accurate. I remember playing in tournaments and we started walking off the 150s to make sure the 150s were accurate. And by that time, I'm going to say my numbers were really different than my friends with longer legs. So then we're totally confused on the yardages. But anyway, my point is that that's old school, right? And then GPS came up and all the devices came up to help you find the yardage, to zap it. And by the way, I could have 3 people with rangefinders in the group and they all come up with different yardages. Have you had that experience too? And it's different from the cart that's in the cart. So it's not an exact science either. But I have slope on my rangefinder and I keep it on just to educate myself about learning terrain again, because when we're not used to looking at the pin, having to rely on our eyes and training our brain to judge the distance and to judge if it's uphill or downhill and then do math, right? We train our eyes. We become very good at judging distance. We get so wrapped up into our devices that we miss looking at the golf hole itself. We miss learning so much about the architecture of the hole, the undulations, where to land it, where not to land it. We look at a device to figure out if there's water up there, how far it is to the water, how far we have to carry. But we're not looking at the big picture of the golf hole. We're not learning how to judge distance with our eyes. We're relying on a machine, and it's helpful, but we become lazy. And one of the things that I had my epiphany on in my conversation with my client is that having to do my own yardages and my own math, simple math, we're just doing addition and subtraction. And let me tell you, when you have done this and you were supposed to add yardage and you subtracted it or vice versa, and you fly the green, you're like, oh my gosh, why did I just hit a 5-iron and it was 110? You do that once, it happens, and you double and triple check, making sure that you're adding when you're supposed to be adding and subtracting when you're supposed to be subtracting. But when you're doing that simple math in your head, what happens is that you don't have the space to think about where not to hit the ball. You don't have as much space to worry about what you did on the last hole. You get yourself back up into your prefrontal cortex, the area where you're making cognitive decisions, and out of the drama part of your brain, the worry part of your brain, the anxiety part. It gives your brain something to do. So if you're challenged with thinking about where you don't want to hit the ball, or what happened on the last hole, or how many holes you have left to shoot a certain number, or where you stand in a match, and your brain is really busy, and you're constantly just relying on your devices mindlessly, giving your brain a job to do is super useful. And one of the simplest things that you can do on the golf course is basic math, walking off steps. And even if you're going to tell me, Kathy, there are no yardage markers out there. There's no sprinkler heads with yardages on it. There's not a 150-yard marker out there anymore because the courses have taken them down because we all rely on devices. You can do math on the green. Figure out where you're shooting it to. Do your rangefinder to the front of the green or to a bunker, and then try and do some math to what's on the back of the green. Start using the front of your brain so that you can get out of the back part of your brain so you can focus more clearly and you can be more present and there's less mental drama going on. There's just something very calming and present about doing it. When you're out there walking and having to do your own yardages and pace yourself, and maybe even using a yardage book and pacing off of bunkers or sprinkler heads or trees, whatever you might have to do it off of, you're very in the moment. And now that I think about it, there wasn't space to have a lot of conversation with people because everybody's busy doing their own math. Right? Now you'll see it still on the tour in the USGA events where you can't use your rangefinder. You got to do math. You want to know how to do that, how to pace yardages and read a yardage book. They become way more complicated than the ones that I had when I was growing up. We used to make our own yardage books actually before yardage books became an industry. Okay. So if you're already super resistant and saying, I'm not a math person, I don't want to do math, I like my devices, no way, I'm bad at math, all the things, this is just simple addition and subtraction. Nothing really complicated. I promise you can do it. If you can deal with money, you can do yardages out on the golf course. Just count your steps, take a big long step, and that's 1 yard. But let me give you some science behind it on how this could be something that you can start integrating a little bit more into your matches when you need to or when you want to. So according to the Googles, math engages the brain by stimulating various cognitive functions such as problem solving, logic, reasoning, and pattern recognition. It strengthens neural pathways, enhances memory, and promotes overall brain health by challenging cognitive abilities, bringing you up to the prefrontal cortex, which I talked about before. Okay, some other things that I think are really interesting is that math also increases your mental resilience. So working through challenging math problems requires perseverance and a willingness to try multiple approaches before finding the correct solution. This process builds mental resilience, making you better equipped to handle setbacks and navigate complex challenges in various aspects of life. It also said that it helps reduce anxiety and boost confidence. Okay. So was this probably a mathematician who wrote this? Maybe. But there's some science backed behind all of this in articles and research. So while math can sometimes induce anxiety, these are my people out there who are going, no, I'm not into math. Confronting and overcoming mathematical challenges can help you rewire the brain and make it more comfortable with uncertainty and problem solving. Okay, so you know that I'm a big person about creating as much certainty as you can on the golf course. And when I read that math, doing simple math problems or working on mathematical equations helps reduce your anxiety, but also help you deal with uncertainty and, of course, problem solving. So with that being said, all my anti-math people and my device lovers, this is what I want to challenge you with. I want you to take a round or a week and put your devices away. If it's on your cart, put a piece of paper over it. Take your watch off. Use your eyes. Use your brain. Learn from some of the mistakes that you're going to have on misjudging yardages. Start paying closer attention to the golf course and the design. How many times have some of you gotten a yardage off of your device? It's a perfect club. Right? It matches up perfectly with your 7-iron. You swing your 7-iron up there, you hit it right up close to the pin, and you're like, oh my gosh, I did not want to hit it at this pin. I wanted to be short of this pin, or I wanted to be left of the pin. I didn't pay attention to the green. I hit a great shot, and now I have an impossible 2-putt because of where I left myself. That's because we rely on the device, and we become mindless, and we become lazy. I played at an event recently where there were 5 devices in that cart. 5 devices. I have no idea how I played good golf with 0 devices, other than my feet and my eyes and some help with where to start at 150 yards. That's it. So I'm encouraging you to go old school, because guess what's happening and what's coming? More devices, more things to help the game be easier. But actually what happens is you become lazier mentally, and then you leave so much space, because that element of trying to figure out what club to hit and doing that course management, those caddy skills and getting the yardages has become so fast and so easy. You have so much extra time to worry and to think and be anxious. But if you have something to do with your brain that gets you up into your prefrontal cortex and helps you think, it is totally going to help you manage your mind and manage your thoughts much better out on the golf course. All right, my friends, go a week. Okay, go a day. 9 holes, maybe a hole. Try. Try. Get started. See what happens and fill me in. I want to hear about it. All right. Have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.